the luckiest of weeks, I'm sure. I'm Chris Spags, joined as always by my buddy, the Chubster, Josh Engelman. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm good. I'm just here to make Skyler leave.
Yeah, apparently the YouTube chat already protesting one guy in particular who seems like a real gem. Also, Josh, I didn't mention to you before we came on the air. It's my birthday today, so it's impossible to have a bad show. I'm sure all of our picks will be 100% correct today.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. It's great getting older. It's great.
25, right?
Yeah, 25 on the nose. Every year, Josh, 25 again.
I pulled that to a waitress in a diner while I was out, and she didn't seem as happy when I said 25.
I think you could pass for 20. I think we could both pass for 25 in that right. And, we button ourselves up right. Maybe we're like a little childish shirt, some sort of horizontal striped shirt. I think we could do it.
By the way, just putting this out there right now. So my dog is wearing a cone right now. He seems to be chilling on my couch, but there may be a time where I just have to get up.
Because he's got a cone on?
Well, he tries to get off the couch or something. I might just have to hop up and fix him.
Oh,
Emergency gallbladder surgery on Wednesday.
Oh, no. Is he all right?
He is now.
Okay.
50-50 if he was going to be alive after Wednesday, but here we are, alive.
Well, which dog is it?
The pug.
Oh, I don't remember the name of the pug.
Dingo the pug.
Well, get well soon, Dingo. I think we all are. We have our thoughts and prayers with Dingo and his gallbladder. Gallbladders suck. It's like, what does it even do? Why do you need a gallbladder?
It gives you a lot of gall, I guess.
It's true. Dingo is all gall. And you know what else is all gall? Living in a world in which you don't have to pay rate in DFS. And that's what FantasyDraft.com provides you every single day. So if you've got the gall, go over to FantasyDraft.com right now and use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial. And the Hooters main event has been a very profitable tournament for a lot of people out there. The largest rate-free tournament you will find in the world of DFS. And Josh, I know you are playing regularly on Fantasy Draft. How are things going for you in that magical world of FantasyDraft.com?
I can't complain at all. I love Fantasy Draft, and I'm not just saying that because they're the sponsor. Great contests, great payout structures, no rake. All of those things are fantastic. I love Fantasy Draft.
Yeah, and you can also keep track of how much you're saving with the rake in tournaments that you are winning. And again, the only place that 100% of the entry fees go to the contest winners is go to FantasyDraft.com right now and use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial. All right. Oh, this man. Thomas Tyner, one of our regulars, definitely one of my regulars in my short form videos, had his gallbladder out, almost died because too stubborn to go to ER. So you got to have that gall in your life.
Yikes.
The chat's funny today. Dingo ate my baby. David's. All right, let's talk football because I'll just keep laughing at chat. I'm in one of those moods today. Let's start with the quarterbacks as always. And once again, Matt Ryan, the belle of the ball in week 7, going to be highly owned, but getting a Rams defense that should be slightly improved because of having Jalen Ramsey out there now, though one player probably not going to change around their entire fate. So not a bad defense, not a great one. Matt Ryan, a ton of volume, throwing 43 times a game. Where are you shaking out with Matt Ryan this week, Josh?
I mean, how do you not like him? I get him every week. I don't really see a reason why that should change today.
Yeah.
He's like the Leonard Fournette of quarterbacks.
Hmm?
The volume is just there constantly. Just play Matt Ryan. Don't get too cute.
I'm playing less Matt Ryan this week just because I do think I like Goff a lot more on the other side. But ultimately, Matt Ryan just keeps doing it every week. And Goff, he is a person who does have some struggles. This is kind of an ideal spot for him because the Falcons don't generate pressure at all. And that's really what's led to Goff's decline the most this year. And it's also a dome game, which is going to help him out with his road struggles. So I like Goff more at a slightly cheaper price, but I could see it being a short-sighted thing by me by just not going to Ryan because Ryan he's been, I think, the tournament winner for at least 2 of the last 3 weeks, I believe.
Top stack odds for Atlanta on DraftKings are crazy high in comparison to every other team. Basically as high as the next 2 teams, which one of those is going to be the Rams. I just don't know what else to do with it. I can't imagine not having exposure to that game in abundance and just trying to make sure that I'm grabbing a relatively low-owned guy or 2 or, guy plus defense to just make that lineup a little bit more different.
Yeah, I think, to me, I do think the addition of Ramsey makes it a bit more appealing to go to Ridley, to go to Sanu, to even go to Hooper, who's been really highly targeted, been about as well targeted as Julio Jones has been on the year. So Yeah, I get the point in going to him. I think the chalky ownership makes sense. I just think there are some other ways to go if you are trying to get away from the chalk. But
Yeah.
given how Matt Ryan's played, I guess maybe you don't need to get away from him.
Yeah, look, you can figure it out elsewhere. I wouldn't get away from Matt Ryan or Falcons guys or Rams guys for that matter because of their ownership. I'd figure it out on a different spot.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Let's go. Who's going to be the number 2 quarterback? Oh, the number 2 quarterback is in fact going to be Jared Goff.
Yeah.
So look, I like going to Jared Goff. I think the thing on DraftKings is only $100 difference for Goff, so you're really not getting a big savings going down from Ryan. But Goff, I think, does have a lot of upside in this spot. The receivers certainly as good as they've ever been. Cooper Kupp looking even better than he's previously looked. You could also make a case that Brandon Cooks is due for some positive regression because Goff has not been good throwing the deep ball, and Cooks is certainly a deep ball threat who should be able to get on track against Atlanta. I don't know. Like I like Goff a lot. I have a ton of Goff. I have more Goff than Ryan. I'm heavily above the field on Goff, but how are you feeling about him?
Basically the same way, although obviously a little bit more trepidation since he was an absolute tire fire last week. It's this game is just so hard to avoid because you can so easily see it being a massive day in DFS just across the board. I can't imagine ignoring either guy. I'm more nervous for Goff just because I don't know. I can see this. Well, the Rams are just a better team than the Falcons. I think that's really the easiest way to say it. So I can see them getting there in more ways, whereas I don't see a scenario where Matt Ryan isn't just slinging the ball around.
Yeah, I mean, you do have Todd Gurley back in there, and he did look pretty good before the injury. It was kind of a surprise that he ended up missing that game with, I think, quad issues, not the same knee issues he's always had. But yeah, I think that you're right that there are some different ways to go there. I just think this is a spot where, I mean, Atlanta we know is going to keep throwing. They have thrown at one of the highest rates in the league, throwing about 67% of the time. And, the Rams are going to have to throw, I think, a decent amount as well because the Rams defense, while decent, still gives up some production. We've seen Jameis Winston have monster games, and Matt Ryan, I think you could say, is better than Jameis in terms of all the things you'd want out of a quarterback.
I mean, we're seeing 30% of the top stack odds coming to Falcons or Rams. That's a big time number. That's for DK, obviously, but I mean, we're talking about like 1 out of every 3 times it's coming from this game, and you have to assume that at least a piece of the other side is going to be pretty valuable as well. It's hard to avoid that. Now we're getting a comparable amount of ownership there, so that is something to be aware of. It might not be the best place to like take a big stand, but at the same time, to avoid it is avoiding, the largest combination of top stack odds that we're going to find.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess out of this game, because I think this is a very important game, so we're kind of going to talk about this one a little bit more than some of the others that we're going to hit on. But who are your favorite stack targets with Ryan then? Because Julio, I think you can make an argument. You can make an argument both ways, really, where people are going to be a little bit afraid of Julio because of the matchup, assuming that he'll see Ramsey. It's also possible that Calvin Ridley sees Ramsey, and then we see a double team on Julio, or just some different approaches to try to get those guys to fall in line a bit more. So who are your favorite targets with Ryan?
Julio for sure, and then Hooper probably as a number 2. Ridley and Sanu to me is a coin flip. That's more about price than anything else. But I'm not avoiding Julio because of anybody. He's Julio Jones.
Okay, that's fair. And the Rams on the other side, who are your favorite guys? I mean, obviously Kupp is going to have the most ownership. I think Brandon Cooks is a really interesting play. I just think he's due for some better things. Targets have been down for him this year, but the air yards have still been there for the most part. And, one would think he could still break a big play, due for some positive touchdown regression. So is Robert Woods, who hasn't seen much in the way of touchdowns either. I think these guys are a little more interesting than going to Kupp, but Kupp, the volume's been there for him, so it's hard to advocate against him as well. But who are you feeling the most on the Rams?
I mean, Kupp is the easy answer. It's just so hard to separate Woods and Cooks, but at least I'm going to speak for Yahoo in this particular case, just because I'm looking at it. It makes it a lot easier when Woods is projected for more than double the amount of ownership for Cooks at a higher number. So I'd greatly prefer Cooks to Woods on Yahoo. I prefer Kupp to both of them, and I don't really care at all about Gerald Everett.
I don't mind Gerald Everett. I think he's a person to consider in some lineups, but I don't want to have a ton of him. I think he's worth having some exposure though, because you could see him get those passing touchdowns rather. He's just been more involved in the offense this year in a way, getting over 5 targets a game. He's actually pretty close to where Brandon Woods is in terms of targets. So I think that is a spot where he is the one piece that's pretty much unowned, and I think that could have some value. But I think Gurley too. Gurley, we're not talking about running backs yet, but I think he's a really strong play in this spot. If he's healthy and just Atlanta's not good, and I think they're going to have opportunities for him to punch it into the goal line enough times.
He scares me, but not for like performance reasons. How do you ever know what you're getting out of this dude? How healthy is he? I don't think we ever know. I don't think it's ever 100%. He's the guy that I probably have the most trepidation for, but if you told me that he had 3 TDs today, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and he's also been running routes and stuff too. I mean, look, if he's healthy out there, this has been one thing I might have mentioned it last week, but I've been trying to be less worried about Q tag guys and injured guys, because if they're out there, the hope is that they're going to be full functionality and able to go in the way that you'd want. So I do have some Gurley. I'm above the field on Gurley, and I think if you are going to see a lot of ownership for the receivers and for Goff, and not a lot for Gurley, I do think that is another leverage point to go to.
Yeah, I mean, right now we have Gurley at 8% on DK. I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. Ownership on DK kind of drops off a cliff after Goff. I mean, not a cliff, but definitely much lower. Nobody else in double-digit ownership besides Goff and Ryan. Lamar Jackson looks like the number 3 QB. Where do you shake out on him? Because I really don't think I have any this week. I just think they're going to spy on him and do a better job containing him, and people may be chasing that big rushing performance. He's always going to run. He's always going to be good, but no Brown. I think it's a tougher spot this week.
You mean you don't want the noted quarterback Lamar Jackson with impeccable throwing ability?
He's a decent quarterback. I still think that, but with one less weapon out there, I do think Brown is a big part of him being better this year at QB. I still like Mark Andrews. I think he's a good player, but I don't know. Like, I think if they're taking away the run game, and I really do think Seattle is going to dedicate all the resources to stopping him from running and doing what he did last week, where he had more yards than every running back.
Yeah.
So he's a unique weapon for sure, but I think this is not a great passing spot for him without Brown.
No, not at all. He's always viable because of his legs, because he's going to put up fantasy points in a way that basically no other quarterback can do that. So it almost creates a floor for him that is hard to avoid. The real problem, honestly, the problem is, does Seattle get out in front early? The longer that the Ravens can avoid having to play catch up, the better it is for Lamar's outcome. I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody doesn't already know. If they maintain, if that game is close through the first half, then I think Lamar's a very reasonable play, because he's too good on the ground and will acquire points in a way that nobody else does. I can't get there with a lot of exposure. Brown not being there makes it really difficult, in my opinion. I don't mind the Lamar Jackson naked spot today, but it would be a very low percentage option, just because I think the ceiling is really tough to get to.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he had a good game. I just don't see it being the way that we like to build lineups, the way we like to have, a couple stacked targets and running it back. I don't feel like it's the best build going to Lamar this week, and I'm not going to be there much, which is kind of scary, just because he can run and can go crazy and have those big days, but just doesn't seem like an ideal spot. And I guess in this group too, we do have a bunch of ownership kind of bunched together. Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, who's now highest implied total of the week for Buffalo, which I feel like a proud father seeing Josh Allen and the Bills rise to this situation here. But out of this group, Murray, Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, I guess you could throw Russ in there too, because he's pretty close in terms of ownership. Which of these guys do you have the most of?
Let me sort this back down again. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
So we're looking at Murray, Allen, Wilson, Jones, that area.
Yep.
Probably your boy.
Yeah.
I mean,
feels good, right?
The problem with Daniel Jones is that I think he's terrible. So, because that's a fantastic DFS spot. I guess it probably doesn't matter all that much. He's in a spot where I wouldn't be surprised. There's the opportunity for so much volume for Daniel Jones today. The problem is, does Saquon just become the thing instead? I don't know. I mean, obviously getting him back is better than not having him and running out whatever other trash the Giants have. They're healthy-ish. The pace of that game is going to be through the roof. I think I'd prefer your boy Josh Allen, though.
I mean, it's such a high total and going against Miami. The thing that worries me, and this was something when I had a lot of Josh Allen against the Giants, and I just kind of observed it, and I've filed it in my head basically since then, but they really don't want to put him out there a lot. Once the game is safe, they just want to let him kind of go on cruise control. They were so not aggressive with him in that game. They could have probably kept throwing bombs to John Brown, could have kept going to Cole Beasley. Instead, they just kind of squeezed the air of the ball, ran it a lot. You also have Singletary back this week, Frank Gore in a revenge game against Miami. It's very possible that they just kind of have that early production and then just go on cruise control, because that defense is really going to do a lot of the work this week going against Fitzpatrick. So I don't know that, like, I like Allen, and I just don't know that he's actually going to be worth it, which sucks. I think he has a decent floor, and I wouldn't mind him in cash either, but I do think that he's tough to trust to hit that ceiling, because I just don't think they want to see him get to that ceiling.
I don't think that they want to see him get to that ceiling either. Where is he coming in the top stacks? Let me see. Wow, that's rough. Not that might be the worst play on DK today.
Wow, really?
We'll give away a couple tidbits. 3.3% chance of top stack, 7.4% ownership going to Allen. Not the best value on a point per dollar basis. You could make a case that the Buffalo stack is the worst stack on the board. So I might have to roll back my Buffalo selection there and look a little bit more at Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, like, there isn't the volume really, or the ceiling for the players. Like, I do think John Brown is a pretty decent ceiling. I don't know that Cole Beasley does. Also, Dawson Knox, who I think is a pretty interesting player, kind of has some Gronk-like abilities in terms of just being a big guy, can get out in space and does get some deep targets. He's got Tyler Kroft now in the lineup, and that's going to affect him a little bit. And Tyler Kroft, I think, at the minimum, is actually worth a couple flyers as well. But yeah, like, it's just not a high upside stack, I think, is the issue, because the run game is going to get a lot of work. You're probably going to see Josh Allen not throw a lot. Like, literally in that Giants game, I think he had 20 fantasy points in the first quarter and a half. And after that, he had like 3 more, because they were just like, you did it, buddy. You did it. Like, great job. And I think that's what they want out of him, is just to get out alive. And if he gets out alive, like, it's not going to take much to get out alive against Miami. So it worries me a bit in terms of the upside. And the Giants, I think, have more. They have better weapons for sure.
That's a gross game. I understand Miami, that the Bills are winning. I still don't find them particularly, like, appealing. It's still a lot of guys that I don't find to be very good. They just happen to have a good record. Anything versus Miami. I'd rather just figure out what the outcome is later. Just tell me about it. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, I do like the Bills more. I think they have potential. I think the thing is, they're kind of Bill Simmons talks about slot, like the good, bad team.
Yeah.
I think that's basically what they are, is like, they're going to get crushed by New England, and the defense will keep them in those games, but the offense is just going to get oppressed if they go against anybody good. But, in this spot against the Dolphins with the total's gone up throughout the entire week. That's the other thing too, where it went up again today. Like, they were tied for the highest implied total with the Rams yesterday. Now they are the highest implied total by a half point. Like, I think it's hard for me to not get some of it. And I do think John Brown's really talented, and Allen himself is talented, but they need a second receiver. There's no Zay Jones anymore. Robert Foster's out. Like, they don't have a second receiver guy who can really kind of break that big play upside, I would think. Maybe Isaiah McKenzie, but I don't know about that.
I mean, 1 point win at the Jets, 2 touchdown victory against the Giants, the 1 by 4 against the Bengals, obviously lost to the Pats, and then Titans by 7. Now they get the Dolphins. Good God, are the Bills lucky?
They're going to make the playoffs. Like, I think they're going to make the playoffs.
I don't know about that. What are the odds? Do you know?
I do not know offhand.
Let's see, 538.
I mean, you got the Dolphins 2 more times this year for them. They also have Washington coming up. Like, they have at least 3 or 4 more easy wins.
77% chance to make the playoffs per 538 right now.
That seems about right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I love Josh Allen, but betting against Josh Allen in the playoffs, like, depending on who the matchup is, seems like a real lock move.
So let's think about it here. So they would probably be the 5 seed. So that means they're going to play the worst division winner, which is projecting to be Baltimore, actually. So that would be Bills at Ravens in this scenario.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Bills defense has been, or excuse me, the Ravens defense has been worse this year, but that does not seem like a spot where them blitzing Josh Allen over and over and over again, like they have a 45% blitz rate or something.
It would be Bills at those wild card games would be Bills at Ravens and Colts at Texans, and that's today, right? No, am I?
Yeah.
Oh, God, my brain is killing me this week.
Today is Texans at Colts. Yeah.
Yes. So that is what we would have right now. Current QB adjustment plus 73 to Miami.
Interesting.
I love it. So they have like an ELO rating for each team, and that's what Fitzpatrick gives the Dolphins such a gigantic bump from whatever other slop they try to run out there.
That's look, that Dolphins team. Somebody asking in the chat right now, Dolphins D in play at 1,500. They're not a good defense, but Allen will occasionally give you some gimmies. I think he's been a little bit unlucky in terms of interceptions this year. He's got a 4% rate now, but a couple of those were like bobbled passes, and he's actually been pretty accurate. But I think that's an interesting thought, at least at 1,500. Are you playing any Dolphins at that cheap?
At 1,500, I would absolutely play the Dolphins defense.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. It's no. I think they're still going to get blown off. Like the doors are going to get blown off for sure. But we talked about it with the Jets last week, where it's like, or what's the Jets? Whatever team was super cheap last week. We're like, why not play a little bit? Because if they get value, or if they had that lucky special teams touchdown, that lucky fumble recovery touchdown, you're made, and you can also afford a lot. There's a lot of high price guys I like a lot this week, and that's tough with the defense. That the Bills defense is so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it opens up so much money, and let's say Josh Allen gets hit and fumbles. It's just as random for one of the Dolphins guys to scoop that stuff and score. And if they get a defensive touchdown, you are very, very, very happy about playing a $1,500 defense.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's talk some more about the running backs, because obviously that is a key part here. We're going to do our 100-yard picks, 100-yard and a TD picks coming up in about 5 minutes.
Great.
And some of these guys I'm sure will be in play, which, by the way, EMAC again making his run. And you and I both got stonewalled, I believe, last week.
If anybody's looking for a nice fade, let me know.
It's actually hilarious how you're not good at this.
Yeah. Well, it's craziness.
It is. Like the guys you've picked too were like, some of them have been chalky, some of them have been elite plays, and even the ones that aren't are just not getting there for you.
I've named guys that are like top 5 guys at their position every week.
It's actually been very funny, but one guy who I'm sure will be in play for us this week, and I think would actually be okay with the criteria we've established where we're not taking the super high price guys, Leonard Fournette, Uncle Lenny, going to be the chalk player of the week. It looks like almost 40% projected ownership for him. How are you feeling about Fournette? I love him. I think this is a great spot for him. Cincinnati's terrible. Fournette's seeing almost 30 touches a game recently. Like, I don't care about the chalk on this one. You can get away in tournaments a little bit, and I did, but I like Fournette a lot at his price point. How are you feeling about him?
He's the best play on the entire slate at any position. Yeah. There's nothing else to say. Like, he, barring injury, I don't know how that really fails all that much. You're obviously holding hands with 40% of the field too, but outside of McCaffrey, is he the most consistently, I don't want to say targeted, because I don't just mean in the passing game, but he has the most value on this slate from a volume perspective for any running back or wide receiver, and has arguably the best matchup of the day. It's 40% might be too low for him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, it's tough because it's football. Anything can happen. He can get hurt in the first quarter. He can regress and do this crazy stuff he did last year, but he's so involved. He's getting 6 targets a game. He's running the ball a lot. Minshew, I think, has been very competent back there, a guy who really is, I think, held it down much better than people had expected with Nick Foles going out. And against Cincinnati, Cincinnati's a terrible team. They really have shown nothing defensively this year. It's really kind of the ideal spot for Fournette if he is going to be chalk. Cincinnati's given up 185 rushing yards a game right now, which is, the Lamar number is going to help that out a bit, but still, that's so much. And Fournette's just getting all the volume and all the work. So I just don't see why you don't go there.
Has he really held it down?
Minshew? I think so.
They're 2-4 with a 14% chance to make the playoffs. What's he holding down? The 6th pick in the draft next year?
The defense has been worse, though. I don't think you could put that all on him. Like, he's at least kept them competitive and helped them win those 2 games, which they probably wouldn't have won without him.
Sure. Look, I don't want it to sound like he's been like that. I think that he is bad or anything like that. But, he's just a guy.
Yeah, I don't think he's worth necessarily all the hype and whatever. Like, I think he's more of a fun character than he is a great quarterback. But, still a guy who I think is competent enough. And I think Nick Foles would probably have been better in the role. I mean, he looked pretty good for the limited work that he had. But, I think Minshew is fine. I don't mind. Like, I'm actually playing a little bit of Minshew this week because I think it's a nice spot for DJ Chark. And I think also you could see some work for Fournette as well out of the passing game. So I don't mind Minshew as a play this week, and I think he's good enough to be against Cincinnati. He's good enough.
Yeah, like I like him if you're a max entering guy to have like 5% of the Jags, whether, whatever combinations you're looking to go to, whether that's Chark and Westbrook, one of each. If Fournette ends up in there in some sort of game stack, sure-ish, but scary. It's just such a great spot.
Yeah, I agree. How much Fournette do you currently have?
60, 70, something in that neighborhood.
That's about where I am too.
Yeah. I mean, I have 60 to 70% Leonard Fournette every week, so it really wouldn't matter where his ownership was coming in. The dude has been my top running back for, I think, the whole season.
I was off him. I mean, I wasn't off him last week, but I was lower on the field. We mentioned this. I was lower on the field than him and Bell last week because I just thought, like, Carlos Hyde, I liked a lot. Adrian Peterson, I liked a lot. I thought those guys kind of had their ceiling. I thought was where Fournette and Bell were going to shake out. But this week, I am very much fully on board with Fournette, even though he's a little bit higher priced. I just think this is pretty much a smash spot for him.
Yeah.
That grades out about as well as any matchup will for him this year.
It'll never get better than today for Fournette.
Yeah, like unless he's got, I don't know. They might have Miami on the schedule or something, so that could be something too.
Let's see if they do. They got the Jets the week after.
That sounds good of a spot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is as good as it's going to get this year.
And Fournette, just based on volume, like he hasn't had the touchdowns, so I guess that's probably oppressing his price a little bit. But he probably should be like an 8K player at this point, just given the volume he's seen.
Oh, I'm shocked at his price.
Yeah, like at least 75-ish. Like he maybe not quite Dalvin's here, but I think he's right behind Dalvin in terms of where he should be priced.
I mean, like it's crazy to think that David Johnson is $800 more expensive than him.
Yeah. I like David Johnson. I think he's a good player, but Fournette's he's the offense. He's everything in that offense. He projects insanely well. Projects actually better than Saquon Barkley, which is crazy.
Yeah, like I think if you're asking me if I had to pick one of those two guys, I'm picking David Johnson as what I would deem to be like a better running back. But in terms of DFS so far and the opportunity, I just think that Fournette should be more expensive.
For some reason, I don't know why I want to answer this question because we don't like doing either ors too much, but we're going to do the 100-yard picks in a second. But Ariana Fritas, maybe because it's a girl, I feel like I'm presuming a girl. Kyler or Josh Allen for Yahoo Cash. Who would be more appealing to you? I think that's actually a very interesting question. I think it'd be Kyler.
Kyler or Josh Allen in Yahoo Cash. Okay, so let me look at it. Let me see where we have everybody. Kyler, Josh Allen, comparable ownership. It would be Kyler for me.
Yeah, I like Josh Allen. I could just see a game where he doesn't need to do a lot to make that work, whereas Kyler is just throwing a lot. He's at 10 rushing attempts in his last 2 games. I think that's sort of where you want Kyler to be, so I'd go to him for cash, especially that matchup against the Giants.
They have basically the same expected ownership. They're at the exact same price. Alex has Kyler 1.4 fantasy points ahead. So for me, I'm going to Kyler. Just a little bit easier, I think.
All right, let's talk about the 100-yard picks. Some guy said move on to the chat, and I said you moved on, and he said make me. So now he's hidden on the chat.
Yeah.
Learn the lesson. Don't say make me to me. There's a lot of people in the chat, man.
Just FYI, guys, we can make anybody do that.
Like, we have all the power. I like all you guys in chat, but don't cross me, especially on my birthday. Come on, guys.
Let's not forget who runs this stuff.
My pick, my gift to myself on my birthday is going to be Uncle Lenny Fournette, going to be my pick.
Do we have any qualifications like we did last week?
Under 8K again seems fair. On DK.
Okay, under 8K, 100 yards and a touch. Okay, give me. God, that one's terrifying. No way. Oh, this is
Who's it gonna be?
If I say this, he's absolutely going for like 80 and 80 and a touchdown, and it's gonna drive me crazy. But we just got done talking about him. Give me David Johnson.
Okay. Well, if you got 80 and 80, we're doing 100 total yards, so he would be fine.
Well, then perfect.
Yeah, you're good. And we'll see if EMAC comes in. EMAC, of course, riding a bit of a hot streak. Still down to me on the year, I believe. No, actually, no, I think we're tied now. Yep, 3-3 for me and EMAC. And then, man, the last 2 weeks have really been tilting for me. I had Mark Ingram, who just didn't see the volume because of fucking Lamar running over and over and over again. And Ezekiel Elliott the week before that had like 92 and a touchdown. So I need McCaffrey in the slate, really, is where I need this to be.
Everybody does.
I love that guy.
Tony,
I'm so happy racing.
Tony Hess nailed it. David Johnson, fade of the week.
It's a great spot for him.
I know. So I've been damn kryptonite for everybody I've picked. Dude, yeah, Hopkins is going to have 400 receiving yards.
He owes you that after completely embarrassing you last week for no reason.
2 straight weeks, right?
Let's say this. No, you had Kamara the week before that.
Was Hopkins the week before that?
You've only had Hopkins once.
Really?
So you had Adam Thielen, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, Keenan Allen, Alvin Kamara, Hopkins.
Huh. Could have swore I had Hopkins twice. Oh, no. I just had a lot of Hopkins the week that Will Fuller went crazy.
Yes, I remember talking about that on the show.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, I believe I was like, play some Will Fuller, and you were like, fuck that guy.
No, I mean, I still had enough Fuller that I was happy about it and all, but I had like 45% Hopkins and 10% Fuller.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Emacs pick is in, by the way, going with Chris Carson again. A little bit of a tougher matchup for him, but Chris Carson seeing a ton of volume, so okay. Emac favoring him. Chris Carson is the Dan Vogelbach.
Yeah. I didn't know Chris Carson was fat.
It's true. He's not quite as beefy as Vogelbach, but yeah. Emac supports the Seattle boys.
Emac would have had Jerome Bettis 16 straight weeks.
You would have Mike Tolbert.
Where's who's the fat ass from the Rams? Not on the Rams.
Oh, CJ Anderson?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't have this game last year, but there would have been a lot of CJ Anderson being rolled out down the stretch by your old pal Emac.
Yeah. Emac's taking like tackle eligible dudes, just getting real crazy with it.
All right, let's talk about the rest of the running backs here. Saquon, going to be high priced, but also going to be pretty highly owned. Dalvin Cook, also fairly high priced. I like him quite a bit. I think I should like him more than Barkley overall. But who are you getting out of the expensive running back tier? Because I think Alex mentioned it on either this morning's show or one of the shows he did, but he said there was a lot, might have been actually on yesterday on the contrary. There's a lot of opportunity costs, he said, at running back, because it's like you got these guys like Barkley, Cook, Fournette, who have a really high upside here. There's also guys in the mid tier who are priced pretty well and could have some value as well. So how are you getting to the high price guys? Are you getting to the high price guys at all?
A little bit. I really like Barkley. I assume that if they're willing to put him out there, that he is fully 100%. The Giants have literally nothing to play for, and he is very clearly the most important thing that is on this team. So I can only assume that he is ready to roll, and if that's the case, I think he's probably the most talented running back in the league. I would like to pay up for that, especially in a place where there should be extra snaps relative to average. The volume should just be there, whether that's running volume because the Giants happen to be ahead. He's not coming off the field if they're behind. He's still going to be some sort of receiver in that offense. The only thing you're worried about is an injury, and I can't factor that in. So I think Saquon is the best bet there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Saquon's actually a strong play. The thing to me, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but there are like too many weapons for the Giants now. I guess it's better that Shepard is still out, but it's odd to say that about the Giants, but like there's just too many guys who have a lot of volume right now, and I kind of want to see how they all flow together. Like, it's easy to imagine Evan Ingram not getting 9 targets a game now if Barkley's going to be back in there, and also if you have Golden Tate in the mix as well. And Golden Tate, I don't imagine him having a ton of value either, but he's going to take enough off the table for these guys. And then you also have Daniel Jones, and he'll run a bit too, so he kind of takes some of the short targets away from Barkley. Like, I do wonder if maybe the pace in this game might make up for it, but I do wonder if the prices are a little bit too high, given the fact that like these guys are competing for touches in a way where there's only so much to go around.
Man, chat is having a very interesting back and forth about the Giants right now. Hey, Josh, Giants can still make the playoffs. Yeah, every team can still make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't believe they want to waste him. I think he's healthy. I mean, Saquon's a freak of nature. I'm really not worried. Like, his legs are the size of most human beings' bodies. So, like, I think if anybody's going to be able to get back on track after an high ankle sprain, I think he's a guy who get there fast.
The Giants do not think that they have everything to play for. They are very aware that they have nothing to play for. That doesn't mean that they're going out and trying to lose, but they're not jeopardizing their future. They're not borrowing from the future to make sure that they can get Saquon back for one game against the Cardinals. It's not how this works.
not the most important game for them overall in terms of their long-term trajectory with their young quarterback and young roster core.
I don't think they're sitting there thinking to themselves, all right, today's the day we flip the switch and make the Super Bowl run. If they are, every single person in their front office and coaching staff should be fired.
The Giants fans are delusional enough to think that that's
right. It's just you want him to be healthy and you play your healthy players. You don't rush back the cornerstone of a team for no reason whatsoever.
I would agree. All right. Who else at running back is worth hitting on and for you? Because I have a good mix of guys in there. Like I have some Frank Gore, even though Devin Singletary being back is going to hurt that a bit. I just think I could imagine him falling to 2 touchdowns pretty easily. And even at his price point, I don't mind him. I also don't mind Joe Mixon. I have less of him than I thought I would because he really doesn't project well according to Alex. But at 5K, I think he's an interesting play. Devonta Freeman, I really didn't land on much of because I do think he's kind of due to come back down to earth a little bit. But I think at his price point, too, he's good. Tevin Coleman should be in a smash spot as well, going against Washington. And they've run the ball at the highest rate in the league, I think a 56% rate. So who are you getting in the mid-price tier for running backs?
Freeman is one of the guys that I like the most. If the Falcons happen to be leading this shootout, which could happen, you expect him to be around. He's clearly involved in the passing game, 2 receiving touchdowns last week. If I'm looking at the cheaper dudes, I mean, if the Saints are involved, Lat Murray will probably vulture a touchdown inside the 5. You mentioned, did you say Mixon?
Yeah, Mixon, I thought the price was just low and I could see him being valuable. I didn't get there because, really, I think Alex has him projected for less than a 3x value, which at his price point is surprising, but not getting as much pass game work. But I don't know, at 5K, Josh Jacobs, too, at that price point. There's a lot of guys who you think you can make an argument for. I just don't feel super strongly about.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Wouldn't be the first guy. He's pretty far down in that 5K range for me. I would probably want to get to Murray before Mixon, which makes me feel a little bit weird to say that out loud. But Freeman is the guy in that 5K range that I like paying down for.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Anybody weird that you're getting at running back before we move on to the receivers?
Not really. To me, it's relatively standard. There's nobody that I think is going criminally underowned that I am getting 60% of or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That works. I will single out there Tevin Coleman because I do think he's getting the goal line work a bit more, also getting that red zone work, taking that away from Matt Breida. Could be a hot hand thing, but I just find it hard to believe he's not going to see a ton of work today. And at his price point, you talked about Freeman. I think he's probably a better play, but Coleman not going to be owned at all. I think that kind of gives him some value. So I have enough of him where I just feel like I need to make sure Coleman is one of my guys for the week.
I don't mind it. The Redskins are an absolute awful football team and organization clear across the board.
And that defense, somebody in the chat was asking about Terry McLaurin. I would not play Terry McLaurin this week. That Niners defense, especially outside, is unbelievably good. And I've been kind of beating this horse. We talked about it last week. I was like, don't play Goff. I'm not playing any Goff. I think he's going to get killed in this spot, even at home. And he got the worst game, I think, of his pro career in that game. That Niners defense is not a good spot to go to any Redskins because that Niners defense could really, maybe it's a letdown spot. I guess you want to make that argument, but I think they're going to steamroll Washington at Washington.
I don't mind McLaurin just because they might have to throw 50 times.
Yeah, they might. I think they're still going to end up running it 25 times, even though they're going to be down almost immediately.
That team is just terrible.
Yeah, they are not good. Though Peterson, look, he came through last week. Didn't get a touchdown, but he looked good.
I don't know what to do with that dude. I can't wait to find out what steroids he's on.
I honestly, I think you play him in spots where it's against a really bad run defense. I think he's going to see a lot of work like he did in Miami. He got it to the outside quite a bit in that game. I was watching that. I'm such a piece of shit. I watched that entire game because I was like, it's such a terrible game. And I'm like, I have a lot of Peterson. I want to see how he looks.
God, damn.
And I watched some bad games, man.
Yeah, no shit.
In every sport, NBA too. I love those bad teams always.
Congrats on torturing yourself for 3 hours.
I try my best.
I hate when the highlights show up on Red Zone, let alone watching the whole damn game. That's a game where I would certainly prefer the commercials.
I like bad teams when they're going against bad teams and there's some opportunity to it. I think it's fun, and that's how you know it. I think Peterson in other bad spots, or other spots rather, against other bad teams, I think he's going to get volume. I think he's probably worth playing, but this is not the week.
You're going to play the hell out of XFL DFS, aren't you?
Oh, I look. That's what I'm hoping is going to be my ticket to fame and glory. Is I'm going to be covering the shit out of the XFL. I need to make sure that there's actually, I think DraftKings was trying to partner with them. I'm hoping that they do, because
I think they did, didn't they?
I think, was it officially announced? I just saw.
I'm almost positive I saw the DraftKings logo on some XFL thing, but I could be misremembering or reading something entirely different.
I hope that they have some big tournaments for it, because I want to be doing that coverage. Like it'll be February or whatever, March. Like I think that's that's a time for me where I'd be up for some football.
Hell, I'd even be interested, because usually by March, the NBA is in. Well, actually, what do you mean? March and April is like your favorite NBA DFS time, because they're running out all the garbage. Where's Tim Quarterman at?
I knew you were going to say Tim Quarterman. Of course, if you are not a long-time Live Before Lock watcher, we did have one of our earliest streams, I think, that Josh and I did, was when the Rockets were playing, and they were not in tank mode, but in not playing guys seriously mode. And Tim Quarterman, a player for the Rockets, who I think is in China now, he was cut during the show.
Yeah.
or right after the show, but it was not well timed.
No, while being touted.
He looked good, man. He looked good on a permanent basis.
I can still picture the tweet popping up in my NBA DFS column in TweetDeck, being like, by the way, they just released him. We should. We'll have to go back and pull that clip, because we'll know. We can figure out what day it is.
It was so soul crushing.
You keep going. I'm gonna look up Tim Quarterman on Basketball Reference.
Let's talk about the receivers here. It looks like the chalkiest receiver of the week is going to be Cooper Kupp, and a very nice spot for him. We talked a lot about the Rams earlier on. Kupp has been the most targeted player by far, getting over 11 targets a game. So that's going to certainly make him a focal point of that offense. And Matt Harmon, on the contrary, yesterday pointed out that Goff tends to favor him because Kupp has the most separation by far. Goff afraid to throw into tight windows, and Kupp has been really good at getting a room around himself really while working out of the slot. I'm a little under the field. Actually, no, I think I'm with the field on Kupp now that at this ownership number, but it was hard for me to get there at his price. I just couldn't. It was hard to afford him for me overall. How are you with Kupp? And I guess, did you find ways to get to him along with the field?
I like him a lot, and I very much so think he is the best option on the Rams. At 23% ownership, I wouldn't want to go too crazy just because of Woods and Cooks. I would prefer to just sort of spread that around a little bit more. So if I had a ton of volume to the Rams, I wouldn't go too crazy loading up on Kupp. Oh, especially because of Woods and Cooks' price. By the way, the answer to when he got cut was April 11th of 2018. So I'm going to go back and see if I can find out that exact spot in the stream.
It's going to be like the Ralph Wiggum thing from The Simpsons, where you could pinpoint the moment my heart breaks in half.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. I think Kupp is really talented, and I agree with you. I think your view on it is exactly where I share, where I think, you could see Woods and Cooks getting there. Cooks is just due for better days than he's had. I mean, he's still a good deep ball player. They just haven't been throwing the deep ball as much. Goff has only been throwing over 20 plus yards, 2.5 times a game, which is down, I think, about 2 targets from last year. And he's just been less effective doing it. But one would think that that's due to regress, and going against Atlanta, that is a spot for it to regress. So I like Kupp quite a bit, but at the price points, I think you make a much stronger argument to just take the savings and go to Cooks and Woods.
Honestly, if Kupp is 23% and Woods is 15 and Cooks is 13, you can pretty much rotate through any combination of them. Like if you like to stack 2, then I think all 3 are viable in the same way.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Are you getting to T.Y. Hilton? Because actually, I didn't sort correctly. He's actually the most owned receiver on DraftKings now, it looks like. 25% expected ownership for him. And of course, if you do want your own ownership projections, you still have time right now to go to awesemo.com/join and use that promo code LiveBeforeLock for half off your first month. Or you could find packages as low as $3.95 a week on there, which give you a grade form version of the ownership projections and player projections. But go to awesemo.com/join right now and find out all those packages, because one of them will work for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton, how are you feeling about him?
How do you avoid him at that price on DraftKings?
I think it's hard.
Yeah, that's seriously just where I'm at. To get someone of his ability at 5,900 is just like he's the same price as Robert Woods, and in a bit of a different scenario than Woods, he is the option for the Colts, bar none. If they're passing, T.Y. Hilton is very much the best option that can be found in that offense. So if you're comparing those two guys, like obviously Woods is in a better spot for DFS just in terms of opportunities throughout the game. You know, you're expecting sort of this high octane game. If Watson is out there slinging and the pace of that picks up, if the Colts get behind a little bit, as long as Hilton can stay on the field, he's too cheap for his talent level.
Yeah, and I think too that there are some DVP situations that people are looking at with him where it's like, oh, he always has big games versus Houston, which actually isn't even always true. But the thing to me is he's getting 1.8 red zone targets a game, which is the most in the league, tied with James White. Like, I think that's a pretty nice little chip for him. He's still getting those 7+ targets a game. He's not the same deep ball guy, but he can take one to the house at any time as well. And as you mentioned, Houston can score a lot. And if they do score here, against an Indianapolis defense that's really not that good. They've done a good job kind of oppressing production by playing at a slow pace, but for the most part, really not a great defense overall according to PFF grades or just their results on a per play basis. You can see Hilton called into more action, and he's really the only receiver of note there. Like, you know, you'd always have those weeks where Eric Ebron catches 2 touchdowns and ruins everything, or runs a jet sweep in for a touchdown, and you're like, fucking serious. But T.Y. Hilton, I think, is worth that exposure at that price for sure.
Yeah, he's just too cheap.
Yep, I agree. Who else do we have getting some ownership that's worth hitting on? Mark Andrews looks like he'll be the top owned tight end, pulling ahead of Darren Waller. I'm down on Darren Waller. He was my fade of the week on the contrary this week, just because I just don't see how they have enough to take attention away from him. Like, I think the Green Bay defense is good enough. I think Waller is a fine player, but with no Ty Williams out there, like, are you worried about Zay Jones? Are you worried about Trevor Davis and Hunter Renfrow at this point? Probably not. So I'm not in on Waller. I do like Andrews a lot. How are you feeling about Andrews and Waller? And I guess who do you have more
of? Waller. I have just like a real stupid amount of Waller. I'm speaking Yahoo in particular right now, but I've got Waller in like everything basically. $18, just too cheap. He's really, really, really hard for me to ignore. He's only at like 20% ownership, but every other major tight end is north of $20, and he's coming in at 18. He has the second highest projection in Alex's model, only behind Kittle, but he's a $8 savings just on Kittle. He has the highest implied ownership of any tight end for me personally. So I think that the leverage is there to be able to get there. I don't think that 21% is all that crazy of ownership. I mean, it's high, don't get me wrong, but and I understand that he's the chalkiest tight end. It's just one of those spots where I'm happy to use him and then be more likely to grab, you know, a 2 to 5% wide receiver to make my lineup a little bit different, because you know that Waller is going to be involved.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly viable argument. And Alex said the same thing too about his volume just being so high, and he's running a bunch of routes by the tight end standards. And I just worry whenever and I've been trying to be more mindful of it, because I think for me, and maybe for you too, but like with the NBA, you kind of assume like, oh, this player comes in, you know, he's gonna, like, maybe he'll lose some usage or whatever, but he's getting a similar role to the player he's replacing. Whereas like in football, if a guy's out, like, things have changed materially and can get much worse for the players who are left behind. And I don't know that Waller is a good enough player to be the focal point of an offense, or to be a guy without somebody drawing attention away. And that's what gives me a lot of pause there. Whereas like Mark Andrews, we just saw him do that last week where Brown was out and he still was highly involved and could have had an even bigger day if he didn't fumble and on that very cool hurdle play he had. So I'd favor Andrews.
So I guess it's two different questions. Like, okay, let me look at the price. Okay, so the price is, for me on FanDuel, or on Yahoo rather, Waller is $4 cheaper, which is kind of big. It's $200 on DK. So that, in the grand scheme of things, they are essentially the same. I probably prefer Andrews on DraftKings, given that their ownership is essentially the same. But on Yahoo, that extra $4 I think is pretty big when you only get 200.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Waller too, just is in terms of projections and raw points, he is projected for more points by Osmo. So
okay,
I'm very, like, it's very possible I'm wrong here. But this is just my lean, is like I prefer Andrews and I have much less Waller. But I get it. I get the volume and all that. And Oakland's probably going to be trailing. I think that's going to help them out a bit as well.
Are you anticipating that the Ravens are trailing?
I think it's possible. Yeah. I mean, I just think he's involved enough. Like Andrews gets the red zone targets. He gets the deep targets. Like I just see him being more involved in a way where like, I think it's sustainable. Whereas I just could see Green Bay completely shutting down Oakland here and just, throttling everything.
Sure.
That's my risk or my concern rather. Austin Hooper, a little bit behind these guys in ownership, but he's been there every week and he's been a chalky tight end who's actually came through big time versus Arizona last week. Where are you with him? I'm going to assume he's probably too expensive for you.
I don't have a lot. In fact, I might not have any on Yahoo. No, I'll have a little. I mean, he's the best tight end option to pay up for, I think. It's
Better than Ingram?
I think so, yeah.
Interesting.
If Saquon wasn't back, I would probably say the opposite. But that's a big guy to have back. There's just so many mouths to feed in Atlanta that it's so difficult to predict who gets that touchdown. Whereas in other spot, which is essential. If you're rostering Austin Hooper, he has to get in the end zone. And you can very easily see 4 pop-ups on your phone where it says touchdown Freeman, touchdown Jones, touchdown Ridley, touchdown Sanu. And you're just like, oh shit, Falcons are going off. Matt Ryan's going off. Hooper doesn't have to be involved.
Yeah, he could have 8 catches and end up with 40 yards and no touchdowns. And that's not enough for that price point.
Yeah. And that has nothing to do with him or sort of the performance. That rock gets spread around.
Are you seeing the YouTube chat, by the way, this spam of this, whatever this thing is of streams?
Yeah, I try to catch everyone that I see go by, but yay for spam.
So some of them are weird though, where they don't link to anything. And it's people talking conversationally. I think there are 2 options this year and it's whatever illegal streaming website and number 2 official NFL website.
Yeah.
They're making it conversational. It's creeping me out.
It's really weird.
Is that a robot doing that or is it a person? Got some questions here.
Some of the weird questions that we get in Slack, or not Slack, YouTube chat, makes me wonder if all people are robots.
It's a good point. Cantor33, one of our regulars here, saying really weird to be talking about tight end for 5 minutes and not mention Ingram within said 5 minutes. A, we did just mention him, so that might be the delay. But B, I think his price point's tough, man. I wanted to get to Ingram a lot this week. And for the reasons we talked about with the Giants, Barkley being back, just kind of compressing the ways that can go. I think it gives me less interest in paying up for Ingram, whereas you have Waller, even though I don't like Waller, he's so much cheaper, and Andrews is also cheaper, and Hooper is substantially cheaper. It's hard to trust Ingram. I have a good amount. I think I'm actually above the field, but not as crazy on it because I just can't afford him.
Yeah, I don't. Those other guys being cheaper are so much more interesting. Ingram is the most expensive tight end on Yahoo. I can't pay $27 for Evan Ingram if Darren Waller is $18. That's just, he's way too expensive in this spot. And in Alex, I mean, just for the Yahoo projections that I have in front of me, Alex has Kittle, Waller, Ertz, Hooper, and Andrews all ahead of Ingram. So I just don't want to spend that money.
Yeah, Ingram does not get a great projection from Alex here in terms of value. And that does make it tough because these guys are all in the same raw points range. And if you're going to save $2,000 and get a pretty comparable projection or an even better projection, it seems, it's hard to get to Ingram. But I get it. I get the funnel spot. I get all that. But at that price point, it can be uncomfortable. I'd rather pay up for defense than pay for Ingram.
Ooh, I wouldn't rather do that.
I just love the spot for Buffalo. I just think, and the Niners, honestly, I think they're both in really good spots, and I don't mind that. I know you could do the variance thing. We talked about the cheap defenses that they could luck in, but I think that Buffalo has a really nice floor and also a really high ceiling. So I paid for them a lot. I have a ton of Buffalo.
You're crazy.
It's paid off a couple times this year where I've done that, and there are some matchups where I just feel comfortable going to the defense. There's also been a couple times where it hasn't worked out, like New England, I think, versus Miami didn't quite get there. Was it versus Miami? It was versus Miami or the Jets or somebody, but didn't quite get there, and I think that can happen. But I don't know. I think it's a nice spot for them to, a decent probability of getting a touchdown out of this, or at least a pick six kind of opportunity. And I'll take that shot.
What do you think the actual probability is for a defense to score a touchdown? I'm not. This isn't like a. I don't have an answer.
Okay. No, I didn't think you were laying a trap for me. Though
No.
It could have been. I don't know. I would say the actual probability of it happening, probably a 1 in 10, but Fitzpatrick is a 6% interception rate. So, like,
Yeah.
if they're going to be ahead and he's going to be playing from behind and they're going to get good pressure, and they also have a 20% pass deflection rate. So they're around those balls or they're making contact with passes. I think that's sort of the nice, the ultimate kind of spot for it, but it's still probably not a high probability situation.
Yeah, I would have said even lower than that, honestly. But
yeah, I think you're probably right. It probably is lower, and 10% feels pretty aggressive. But that's you're Look, I get it. Paying up for defense can be risky. I want to have a floor for my defense. I don't want to end up with like 2 points. That's always my thing.
Sure.
Let's see. Anything else?
2 minutes to go, by the way, before lock. So if you don't have your lineups in, I'll need to start clicking faster.
Yeah, get going, guys. And hit that like button. By the second you get your lineups in, celebrate. Hit that like button as your way of going, I'm done. Let me click like for the boys here. Anybody else at wide receiver or I guess tight end that you're getting a lot of that seems strange to you or that you just didn't expect?
You look through this here. Nobody that we haven't already touched on. It's all pretty standard for me this week. A lot of Fournette, David Johnson, Barkley, Zeke. I guess we didn't really talk about Zeke. We've got some Larry Fitz. I think that's pretty reasonable, just given that sort of high pace game. Mm-hmm. We didn't really touch on Tyler Lockett. He's someone that I've got a lot of today on Yahoo. $24. I just think they're going to be out in front. I'm a Seattle believer.
I like Seattle. I mean, they've been so good, and Russell Wilson certainly in the mix for the MVP, and he's been about as efficient as you could possibly be in every spot. So I don't hate that. One guy who is my dart toss of the week. Well, it's too late now, so so it would have been nice if you guys could get him in one lineup. But AJ Brown on Tennessee, I mentioned him on the contrary. I think he's an interesting play because he's a big dude who breaks tackles at a really high rate, and the Chargers have been terrible at tackles overall. They're actually one of the worst tackling defenses according to PFF. So I think that could be a spot for him at 3,800. And I did end up with some Allen Lazard, even though he's not starting. That actually made me keep the Lazard I had because I just think if he were starting, he would have been chalky, and that's kind of dangerous. But now that we have Allison and MVS in there, I think he's an interesting dart toss at not the much ownership as he would have had otherwise.
Yeah, I don't have the Lizard.
The shame Lazard. That's it for us this week, guys. Of course, thank you to Fantasy Draft. Go to fantasydraft.com right now and use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. You're too late for this week's Hooters main event, but they have a ton of great tournaments every single day. And best of all, they're all rake free. So go to fantasydraft.com right now. Save some money on rake. Use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial. And any parting words for you, Josh?
No, just realizing that Liverpool is losing to Manchester United right now, and I really want to just go jump off a building. So, well, no, I don't have any real parting words. NBA season starting Tuesday, full day of NBA coverage. Tomorrow, I will have office hours at 1 p.m. Eastern. I've been doing them. I've been live streaming them for our subs. So you can come in, ask any question you want from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. I will be live tomorrow doing that. We'll certainly be talking quite a bit of NBA as we prep for Tuesday's opener.
Yeah, this is the week. Lots of NBA content. Four Corners coming back too. Live Before Lock coming back with mixes of me, Josh, Fast City Fear, Chris Randone. We have a lot of guys in the mix, so that'll be fun. But yeah, it's fun. And look, we have to win this week for my birthday. Somebody out there win that $1 million and give me a cut.
Yeah, there you go.
That's all I can ask. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button before you go. We'll be back with you again next Sunday for more Live Before Lock, but watch everything else in the meantime. And good luck this week, guys. Bye.